like whether the form modified or not, whether the form valid or not, the form submitted or not. All such details we can access by using service. But what is problem is, in which field which problem occurred, we cannot clearly tell. So any problem in the form, it will identify. So I showed you even how to apply some color, right? If it is valid, then it will apply some color. So dynamically it is verifying all the fields, but we need to verify every specific field. We need to check what is problem in that field and report that problem. For that we have another option. So we have input state validation. Today we will see this one. So input state validation. Input state validation is nothing but it is the process of verifying every field in form individually. So it is the process of verifying every field in the form individually. If we want to verify every field in the form individually, then we can do that by using input state. Input state validation is used for handling this situation. Now here, how to verify every field? So the validation services are, we have same type of validation service. We have a service, we have property and description. What is that? I will give a tabular form. Service is here also same, ng pristine. Property is pristine. Pristine means what? Not modified. Ng dirty. For that, what is it? Dirty. This is modified. We have ng invalid. Invalid. That means not valid. Now we have ng valid. What is the property? Valid. So this is valid. And here one important is valid, not valid means, not valid is verifying whether the field have satisfied validation or not. But a field can have multiple validations. A field can have multiple validations. Not valid means, so it returns true. If any validation, if any one of the validation, if any one of the validation fails, what it will do? Valid means it returns true. It returns true if all validations pass. If all validations pass, it will return true. So invalid and valid is not good here. Why? Because I given required, I given min length, I given pattern. Suppose I am giving 3 validations, and if any validation failed, it will show invalid. Then how to know which one problem is required problem, is min length problem, or is pattern problem? How do we know that? For that, what we do is, generally we use another one, ng errors. Ng errors is an errors property. What is this errors is? It is used to verify specific validation property. It is used to verify specific validation. Specific validation means, is required valid, is min length valid, is pattern valid. We can verify specific. I will tell you the difference. What is invalid, valid, and what is errors. So what is valid, what is invalid, what is errors? One small point I will show you. You can understand that. So we have two more options. We have ng touched. It is touched. Touched means it got, it returns true. It returns true. So when element gets focus, when element gets focus and blur, focus means you click it there, it gets focus, that is treated as what? Touch. So ng untouched, we have untouched also. Untouched you can define, this is, it returns true if element is not in focus. That is what actually untouched. We will see how to use them. So pristine, dirty, valid, invalid, these are present in form state also. The same is present in input state also. Then how to use them, we will see. So in form state they are related to all fields. In input state it is related to only specific field. Let's see one point here now. I will create a simple page. Let's clean up all this. So I will create a new screen so that it's simple. I will remove all this part. Yeah. In the TS file form also, I will remove this. Okay. So submit click is there. It's fine. Keep it. And here we will design a simple register form. So register user. And I am creating a data list. We will create a form first. So class as W2550. This register user I will keep inside. In that we have a data list. In that data term, and we have a username, and the input type is equal to text. Okay, next we have so mobile, and input type is equal to text. Now this is simple button is there. So register. Now let's keep the class here. So class form control. Here also form control. Okay. Now here I am defining class btn and btn some primary. Okay. Now this is the form we have 25. Fine. Now what we want is we want to set validation for this. So when user clicks the register button, I need to verify the validations. What are the validations here? Username, we need to make everything dynamic. Then first form frm register is equal to ng form. For every control we need to define name. Name is username ng model, and hash username is equal to ng. Compulsory every time. Name user, this is mobile, and ng model and hash mobile is equal to ng model. What is the validation for username? It have required. It have another validation min length. Min length I given as 4. Now I have two validations. One is required and min length. Now for mobile I will put required, mobile also required, and mobile have a pattern. In the pattern, we kept here slash plus 91 slash d and 10 digits number. That is the validation expression. So now what we want to do, we want to report those problems. So and display is required problem, is min length problem. We need to verify and display. Now how to display that? Actually, we can write like this. We will put a data definition. We will say invalid name, invalid username. Here we will write two errors are there na? Two errors are there means you need two messages. What is that? Required. Another one is min length. That means I am giving say username required. Okay, and another error is min length. That means now here we have to define another definition. Here I will give another is a minimum 4 characters required. This we have defined. Now you see here, so both messages are coming. Name is required, minimum 4 characters required. Now I will put here class text danger. Here also class text danger. Text danger. Now it is displaying. Now important is I don't want these messages to display until unless the validation happens. That means if user types any name, then automatically it should disappear. Which one should disappear? Username required must disappear. And this is also I don't want. This I should display when user types wrong characters. By default, both messages are displayed. That is not good. When to display? When any error occurred. Then how to verify error? So here, how to add, remove any message? You can simply use ng if. Am I right? Ng if is used for adding and removing. So when to add this? When username is invalid. That means here we have to use username dot what is the property? Invalid. When to display this? This also ng if. So we say username is invalid. When username is invalid, these two will come. Now see what happens here. I am typing username. I am typing username. So you see both are going. I am typing only 3 characters. You can see I am typing 3 characters only. Both messages are coming. That is not satisfying. If min length problem, only min length related message display. If required problem, only required related message should display. It should not display both. This is confusion. That is the reason invalid valid is not good if you are dealing with multiple errors. If you are dealing with only one error, then you can use invalid or valid. But if you are dealing with multiple errors, any error occurred, it will say invalid. Then how do we know which error occurred? That is the reason we have to use an. Actually, this errors object is used to verify every individual validation property is used to verify every individual validation property. For that we have to use errors object. Errors object is used for doing that. But little bit change happened actually. So up to Angular 13, errors is an object with validation properties. properties as keys. Validation properties as keys. That means we have to use like this. Errors dot required, like this. We have to use errors dot min length. That is how we need to access. But what happened is Angular 14, Angular 14, Angular 14 introduced new error log. It introduced the new errors log, and which is an array, which is an array of errors. This is not ordinary object anymore. It is an array. That means if you are working with Angular 13 and lower versions, errors are different. Means error writing style is different. From Angular 14, it changed. If you are using Angular 14, the errors changed. So we have some changes in this error style, the error representation. So up to Angular 13, we used to use the simple object style, errors dot required. But now we have errors. Errors is a question mark. Question mark means it is an optional, and it is having dot invoke. It is an array. In that array you can have all the validations, like required is an property, like min length is an property. Min length is an property, like you have pattern like an property. Like this we have. This is the change in the new version of Angular. If you are working in an old project, you try the new things you learned here, you will fail. If you are working in a new project and you try the old things there, it will fail. It will not work at all. That means backward compatibility in error handling is not there. Backward compatibility is supported in Angular. That means new version features, old version features you can use in new. But related to errors, they completely replaced this. There is no backward compatibility. Either you are using 13 style or you are using 14 and higher style. First you have to check which version of Angular you are using in your company. Based on that you have to write these errors, otherwise they will fail, right? This is the new technique of writing. So now what we have to do, like this we have to define what is the best way. Best way is not valid or invalid. See how to write. First thing is I will put a data definition. In this data definition, two divs I will add. One div is name required, and another div I will give name too short, minimum 3 characters. Like this I am defining. Right, these are two messages to display. For this data definition class text danger. Now when this block should display, this block should display when username is invalid, right? So then we are writing like this. Here this block should be added ng if when username dot what invalid. Okay. In that, which message to display? Required message to display when required error occurred. Min length message should display when min length error occurred. So here we need to write another if, ng if. When this should display, if the error is required, that means username dot what errors is an optional. So dot in that error type. What is the error type? Error type is required. If error type is required, then that is same how you define for another one. What is the second condition? Ng if it should display when username dot what errors. What is the error style? What is it? Min length. So then it should display. So now you can see it will display here only name required. And I am typing here. When I am typing here, it says name too short. And when I typed that, that is fine. I am removing 3. It says name too short. I remove those 3 characters, then it says name required. That is good. So similarly, here one more option is for mobile. Okay, let's put this one also. Another data definition. Lot of work is there. Level by level we will see. Here another class text danger. What are the 2 messages to display? One message is mobile required. Another message is this is related to pattern. That means what we will say invalid mobile. Because mobile should start with +91, should have 10 digit number and all. So that is why. Okay, now when to display this? We have to use ng if. When to display? So when mobile is invalid, that means mobile dot what? Invalid. Now here we have next one. When to display this one? Ng if. If when to display? When mobile dot errors. When mobile dot errors dot, what is the error style? Error style is required. Okay, when to display second one? So ng if this should display when mobile dot errors. Errors dot, what is that error? So when it is a pattern, then it should display. Now that is how we can add. Now you are writing here. So now you can see when you are defining, it will say name required, mobile required. I am typing the name, then it says name too short and minimum it is satisfied. For mobile, I am writing mobile 78. It is invalid mobile. 7, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 digit number still invalid because it should start with +91. Then it is fine. But this is not satisfying. Why this is not satisfying? Because, so you see when I refresh here, by default errors are there. This is wrong. They haven't started anything, you are showing errors. Right? Generally, when these error messages should come, directly error messages you will show. When you have to show these messages, different situations will be there. First situation, they submitted without filling, then it should show. Now tell me the logic. How do we know whether they submitted or not? How do we know whether they submitted or not? So here we can write a condition. When to display user errors? So here you are writing username invalid. Na? Not only username invalid, but also another condition, FRM register dot submitted and username is invalid. Understood? What does this means? It means that it will not show the error until it is submitted. That means form is submitted. How do we know form submitted or not? Last session we learned there is a form state. When form is submitted and username is invalid. Similarly, this also we have to write another condition. What is it? FRM register, FRM register dot submitted and mobile is invalid. Now by default, you can see by default messages are not there. When those messages will come, when you click register, then it will show both. That looks good. So here we have another situation also. Another situation means I am entering the detail, now it is okay. I am entering the detail, now it is okay. It is displaying. Suppose you see now there is another situation. Sometimes without clicking register, they click inside and they came outside without entering. This is called touched. Touched means they went there but without filling came out. Then it immediately I should show error. That means now what is another condition? Another condition is, so this is one condition. Am I right? This is one condition. Put a parenthesis. This is one condition. How to add another condition? Or na? Or what is the second condition? Second condition is username is touched and username is invalid. That means what we do, username dot what, touched, and username is what, invalid. Username touched and it is invalid. That means now what happens, anything should be, they clicked submit button, it will fire up, or they click inside this box without typing, they came out, it will show. That is better. That means you click register, it will come. That means it is working for both situations. On register button it will come, you click inside and click outside, it will display that message. That means even if you are not entering anything, came out, then automatically it will display. This is what we call as touched. That means it is touched, it is submitted, it is verifying the detail. That means here I am defining some name, that is fine. So David, that is, and I entered some name 87845678910, and still, so it is what is it? Here you can see it is how many digits? Yeah, so I am entering required problem here, not written. Here also I should write na. Okay, here also we should write. What is the condition? So parenthesis, what is another condition? Or what is that? So this is another one. What is it? Mobile dot what? Touched, and what? Mobile dot required. Mobile touched and mobile dot invalid. It is touched and it is invalid. Then it should display that message. What is problem? Invalid is capital I given, right? Yeah, that is the property. Fine. Now you can see here it is going to display. I click there and click outside, it is same. I'm entering the mobile number, then it will show invalid mobile, and +91, then it is fine. And I click register, it says name required. All situations are working now. Then I need to enter the name, that is fine. This is the validation combinations, how we can define. So you can put validation. So by using these errors, we can use valid, we can use invalid, we can use touched, we can also use it pristine. Pristine means what? Any modification happened, you can verify. That is same like how you use it for form. You can use all the conditions, but still not satisfying. Why? Because actually this is okay. This I given only for text box required min length, max length, and pattern. Suppose in a drop down, if they haven't selected anything, then how can you give required attribute for a drop down? Can you give required attribute for drop down? What do you say? Can you give the required attribute for drop down? We cannot give required attribute for drop down. How you will verify checkbox checked or not? How you will verify drop down selected or not? So there is no validation attribute. HTML don't have any validation attribute, and Angular don't have any validation service for verifying radios, for verifying checkbox, for verifying the drop downs, because required attribute cannot be defined for them. Required attribute cannot be defined. Then what we have to do is we have to write custom validations. That means Angular can identify HTML validation attributes. Already I showed you that. What are those attributes? Required, So min length we can use, max length we can use, pattern, all these are validation attributes. Email, URL, all these are validation attributes. It can identify HTML attributes, but very important, HTML validation attributes are not for all types of elements, are not for all types of elements. Then what you have to do, you have to create custom validations. You have to create custom validations means you have to write your own validation. You have to write your own validation. Obviously you have to write your own validation so many times. Why? Because for every validation, pattern is not solution. For example, password, you have to learn patterns very well. JavaScript and HTML teaches you patterns, because without pattern you cannot design a form in any technology in the world. Any technology in the world, form means patterns are compulsory. HTML, JavaScript will teach you patterns, and those patterns we use here everywhere regularly. Suppose I am giving here data term some password and data definition, input type is equal to password, and here we will put class form control, and password will have required, and password will have a pattern. Pattern is suppose I am giving question mark equal dot star a hyphen z slash w, so 4 comma 15, like this. This indicates password must be 4 to 15 characters with at least one uppercase letter. This is what your HTML and JavaScript will teach you, how to write patterns for different situations. Not JavaScript, in HTML itself patterns are there, right? HTML you learned about forms, you need to be strong in pattern design. Now you see, I want to report this problem now, data definition. So we have to use ng if. What is that? We have to define condition. What is the condition? FRM register dot submitted. If it is submitted, and password, we have to give name as what? Password ng model hash password is equal to ng model, and here we are defining password dot, what is it? Invalid. That is one option. So, and another, or we are giving another condition. So this is password dot what is it? Password dot touched, yeah. Password dot touched, and what is it? Password dot invalid. Then we have to display first message, we want password required, and second message we want to display data, yeah, we want to display. So at least one uppercase letter required. This is the message, at least one uppercase letter required. And let's put a class text danger. Now you see here we are defining this. Now let's see here also, password box is there, and register. So you see password required at least one, because we are not writing the validation. Here we have to use what? Ng if. This must be displayed if password dot errors object is having a property called what? Required. And what is the second one? Ng if. So password dot errors, and in the errors we have the error property. What is it? Pattern. Now you can see, now I say, so register, then password required, name required, mobile required, Okay, password required. I'm entering the password. Then it says one uppercase letter required because I am not adding any uppercase letter. So I kept 1, 2, 3. I kept one uppercase letter anywhere in between, then it should satisfy. It is not satisfying, some pattern wrong. Let me check what wrong in the pattern I given. Yeah, actually it should end here. Okay, not here. Fine. The pattern went wrong there. Huh? Right. Now I say register. This is name. This is mobile and password. Some password 1, 2, 3. You can see here one uppercase letter, then it is fine. If not having an uppercase letter, then an uppercase letter required. So those patterns will teach you how to write pattern for different situation. But everything you cannot satisfy with pattern. Suppose they asked enter even number. How you will verify? With pattern, how you will verify that it is an even number or not? We can't do anything with pattern. How to verify whether it is an even number or not? We have to take the value, modulus divide by 2, find the remainder is 0. If it is 0, then it is an even. Means you have to do lot of calculation. For this, there are no validations. We have to write our own validation. This is what we call as custom validation. So validation cannot be defined for every purpose. So you have to manually write. For example, drop down. Let's see. Suppose I am defining here a drop down. Let's put a simple drop down. Now here we will achieve one more functionality. Observe form submit. What we have to use? Submit. On submit, what to do? We have to call submit click. Into that we need to send all the form data. It is expecting complete form data. How we can send all the form data? frm register dot value. Okay, now you can see here I am clicking on register, so it is showing empty. It is showing empty because data is not submitted. Now it should not even pop up that message that you are going to see later. That means it should not able to submit. It is able to submit now. It should not able to submit. So you can do lot of things. I told you last session we can disable register button, right? We can write logic in such a way that it is not submitted until or unless everything is valid. Actually for that we have to learn some more points. You will see that initially how to write our own validation, custom validations. How do we configure the custom validation? Let's see. How do we handle the custom validation? This part we will see later. How do we handle the custom validation? Let's see. To handle custom validation, suppose here I am adding data term city. Data definition, we have a select. In that select we have an option. So in that select your city, and here we have another option, so Delhi, and we have another option, some Hyderabad, like this. Now class as form select. Now here we have a name, so name is city, and hash city is equal to ng model, and we need to configure as ng model. Okay, now important is here. So when user selects, when user is not selecting a city and click on register, it should show that message. That means first one is not city, second one, third one are cities. All others are cities, only the first one is not city. Then how do we verify whether they selected first one or others? So we have to manually write the logic for this. Automatically it cannot do. You can write the logic in various. On submit click we can verify, or we can verify while selecting itself. While selecting we can verify and we can report. How do we do that? Let's see. That means when user is selecting, we have to verify. That means you know how to do that. For that, you need to write a event. What is that event? Public, and what is the event? City change. When city change, which city they selected, that value we will pass here. That means we will get city name, city name, and this is what type string type value we are expecting. Now, when user changes the city here, that means we have to write a event. What is that event? Change. So city change method will fire up. In that city change method, we have to pass the current city name. That means what value they entered. Here, what we do is for first option, we will put a value called not city. That means first one is not a city. And what is the second value? Second value is Delhi. And third value is what? Hyderabad, like this. Now, what happens into that? We will pass city dot value. City dot value means it will send whether it not city or whether Delhi or Hyderabad. And if value is not city, that means they haven't selected a city. That is the point, right? If they haven't selected the city, that means the value will be what? Not city. So what we will do here? We will put a simple property. What is the property? We will put a property called city error. In city error, it is a string type. We will put a message, please. Here initially we will keep empty, okay? And when to display message inside it. So we will write a condition. What is the condition? City name, if city name is equal to not city, if city name is equal to not city, this dot, what is it? City error, this dot city error, it should say, please select, please select a city. And we can simply put else. What should happen? This dot city error should be empty. That is one style. There is another style. You can put true or false, and you can show and hide the message inside the UI. Your wish. You can change the message, or you can put true or false and display. For example, you see now. So what we are doing here, so this city error, we are going to display here in a data definition, and here we will put, so what is it? City error, the city error, C uppercase, okay, yeah, and class as text danger. Now see what happens here. I am selecting here, entering the name, entering the mobile, and you see here password I entered at the net 1 2. So and some A, okay, fine. So one uppercase letter is there. Okay, that is fine. Now you can see city, I am selecting, select your city. Then it says please select a city. I am changing the city Delhi, it's fine. I am changing the city Hyderabad, it's fine. I am selecting the first one, it will show the message. You can verify anywhere. I am verifying while changing. You can verify on submit click. On submit click also, I want to verify. On submit click, collect the value, and you can check is the value is no city, and you can report. Any event you can use. But what is the best event for drop down? Change. That means while changing itself, it will verify. You cannot give a required attribute for this. That means every validation cannot be satisfied with the general validation attributes provided by HTML. We have to write a lot of custom validations. That is one point. Suppose now, how do we verify whether a checkbox checked or not? Suppose I am giving terms and conditions. checkbox checked or not. How do we do that? Actually, for that, CSS is enough. No need to go with logic also. Through CSS, you can verify. Without CSS also, you can manage. For example, you see here, I'm giving here. So another data definition, data term, terms of service, and data definition here, text area. In that, so rows is equal to 4, calls is equal to some 30. And here I'll say, so read our terms of service, and I will just keep this disabled. Okay. And below this I will keep a div. In that we have an input type is equal to checkbox, and here I defined a span. In that I said I accept. Okay. This is the option we are having. There is an option I accept. This is class form check input. Okay. So this is class form check label. These are all bootstrap classes for giving the appearance for those. Okay. Now you can see this is here. Now what should happen is this I accept. This I accept whatever is there. Yeah. Now this, if user is not selecting, it should show red color. If user is selecting, it should show green color. Or you can do one more option, like if user is not selecting, you can hide this register button. If user is selecting, then only you can show register button. For that you don't need any logic. CSS is enough. If you have learned your CSS perfectly, with CSS you can manage. No need of any JavaScript for that. Actually what you can do is, for this ID I will give as terms. Actually here what we do, we are writing hash terms. Terms means that checkbox, and I will give tilde button. This indicates the button that comes after this terms. So display I am giving as none. That means actually that register button have to disappear. I think this container is different. Let's see, where is the container in the HTML? This button is completely outside. It is completely outside. It is difficult now, right? What we have to do, we have to keep this inside. This container we have to keep inside the container. Okay. Now you can see, now there is no button. Okay. Button is hidden. Now when this button should display when user selects the checkbox. When user selects the checkbox, register button should come. You can see register button is not there currently. Okay. So what you have to do, we need to just use an option, hash terms. Terms is a checkbox, colon checked. Checked is a class. If it is checked, then the button so should display as block. That's it. Then you see now I select the checkbox, button will come. And I remove this, it is disappeared. You don't need any programming for that. These days, now CSS is so much improving. Now next release of CSS is ready. In coming 1-2 months, we are expecting a new release of CSS. Then 80% of your scripting problems you can solve with CSS. That means without writing much JavaScript, you can manage everything with CSS. Animations, transitions, events also they are designing through CSS. That means even JavaScript is disabled, lot of validations will work, lot of animations and effects will work, and lot of things you can manage without writing much logic. Right? You can do anything. For example, I want to set I accept. That means I am writing one more option, hash terms and plus span. This indicates the span beside it color should be red. That means you see the span beside it, I accept, is in red color. You can see it is in red color. Now what should happen if terms colon what checked, then the span beside it color must be turned to what green. It should turn to green. That means when I select that checkbox, it should turn to green and accept should come. And I remove the checkbox, it should be red and it should be hidden. That means you can control even displaying the elements also. For that, we just need some CSS options to handle. Still, you are doing anything more than this, then you write condition. That means what? On change, verify, checkbox checked or not. If checkbox checked, do one thing, not checked, another. Such concepts we can achieve by using the logic, right? So now important here, one more is, so any event you can configure. Suppose you see, let's go the template. Here we can see I am adding another option. Let's say, yeah, another data term. Suppose verify, even and data definition, I give input type is equal to text. And here, so placeholder I am giving enter even number, like this I am giving. And we are giving class as form control, and here I have to just define. So the option like name is even and ng model, and hash even is equal to ng model. Now I need to verify whether they entered an even number or not. Verify even. If even number not entered, immediately I want to show a message saying that please enter an even number. When I have to verify, like touched, you can write logic. Generally touched is written on blur. Blur means when it loses the focus. Then what we have to do, here you can write a simple condition like this. What we have to do here, we have to write blur. Blur means verify even. How to send the value entered inside this text box? We have to send by using even dot what value. Now we are expecting verify even method here. We will write another method. What is it? Verify even. Into that, we have to collect the value. What is the value? So we have to get the number. So n is what type? N is actually, it is an number. But whatever you entered, so whatever you entered in text box, it is a string type. It is a string type. Whatever you enter inside it is a string. Now what you have to do, because anything you pass through a form element, it is an string, then we have to convert that string into number. And what we need to do, logic here, we need to write the logic, right? That means what we are doing, so as of now we will collect as what type? Any. Now here we are writing an option. What is it? If n parse int, I will use parse int. If parse int what? N is modulus divided by 2, modulus divided by 2, and equal to how much? Equal to 0. Then what should happen? It should say it is an even number, right? So we will put a message. So another message as even error. So it is a string type, it is initially empty. So now here, if it is this, then what we have to do, this dot even error should be empty. Otherwise, if it is not divisible by 2, this dot even error, it should display not an even number. Not an even number, it should display. And this message we want to display below this in a data definition. In the data definition, class text danger, and here we need to keep an option. So message, that is what? Even error. That means what happens now? They are not entering any even number. Click there, you written on blur. and you entered some 3 and click outside, then it says not an even number. I'm entering a value here 4, then it says it is an even. If it is not an even number, then it will return that. If it is an even number, then it will be fine. So everything you cannot handle by using validation attributes and services. We have to do lot of validation custom. We have to write our own events. We have to write our own logic to verify. So what is available with Angular, you can utilize, and what is not, then you have to implement through custom validation. This is the concept of how we can define validation. Custom validation means that, right? Now here one more important is actually Angular provides, so Angular provides validation classes. Angular provides validation classes. So actually these are CSS classes, validation CSS classes. So which are used to set validation validation styles for elements without using ng class. That is the point. Suppose what I want is, if any field is having error, that field should be in red color. That means if any field is having error, that field should be in red color. That means that entire text box must be in red color. In that case, actually earlier what we have done, I showed you in class binding technique. I showed you we can highlight the entire text box and put it as red color. So but here see what I am doing additionally. Here Angular have ready-made validation classes. What are those validation classes? We have validation classes like ng valid, ng invalid. We have like ng pristine. We have like ng dirty. These are ready-made validation classes. We have like ng touched. We have like ng untouched. These are all ready-made validation classes. And majority recent Angular developers don't know this. Means several Angular people who learned Angular also, they don't know this, because this is an old concept. In the beginning of Angular, in the beginning of Angular JS, they were having this, and they are continuing in Angular also. But Angular people are not aware of this. People who are working with Angular from the birth of Angular, they know this, because they know that Angular team is continuing this. Anywhere in the documentations, they are not properly mentioned. That means even in official documentation also, they haven't properly mentioned about these classes, because they are very old concepts, but still they are working in Angular. So that is the reason in many tutorials also you will never find about these validation classes of CSS in Angular. What is the speciality of these classes is, you don't need to write any class binding. Without writing class binding, they can identify the state of the element and they can apply effects. That is very, very good. That means actually, suppose if username is invalid, that entire username box must be red color. That entire box must be red color. Earlier what we have done, ng class, we have written valid style, invalid style. We can apply like that. But now see, simple. You don't need to bind any class to that. Just go to your CSS. In CSS, how to write? This is important. In CSS, we have to write for which element input. Input dot. What is the Angular class? Angular class is invalid. ng invalid. If input ng invalid, that means any text box or any input element is invalid, Angular invalid, then we will put simply border as 1 pixel solid red color. Anything you can give, background color, border color, shadow. I'm giving box shadow as a 2 pixel 2 pixel 2 pixel red color. I'm just giving like this, and you can see now. So whenever I click inside and without typing click outside, it should get that color. Somewhere problem. So actually it is invalid spelling, invalid. Okay, right. Now you can see here, I click inside that text box. You see all these are invalid. Why they are invalid? Because they are all required na, and automatically it is applying the effect. And I click here and say it's now okay. And here I entered. Now it is okay. Now fine. Password also entered. Then now it is okay. That means some David. So 1, 2, 3. So and uppercase. Now it is fine. Now anything is invalid. Anything is invalid. Automatically it will show. Right? You entered. Now it is fine. Even the color is changed. You don't need to apply any class binding. So that means just you write in your CSS, Angular is capable of identifying that. Remember, this ng invalid is not your own class. It is an Angular CSS class. Angular CSS class. That is the reason, if you remembered, the definition is now satisfied. I told you a definition about directive. A directive can be used as a element. A directive can be used as an element, as an attribute, and as an class. You remember the definition? A directive can be used as an element. So ng template is an example. A directive can be used as an attribute. Ng model is an example. Ng form, ng model. A directive can be used as an class. This is ng invalid directive, which is used as a CSS class. So this is important. So this is actually not familiar to everybody who knows Angular, right? But this is a very old technique which Angular haven't removed from Angular JS to Angular. They're still continuing this technique. So still it is available, right? Many people who migrated from Angular to Angular, from Angular JS to Angular, they may be not aware of that. It is still continuing. They may be thinking that everything we need to define by using ng class only. But this is still continuing. This is the first concept of Angular JS. Angular JS introduced this mechanism. Even today it is working. You can still use it because it is related to CSS styles. Styles related, nothing modification they need to do until or unless there are drastic security related issues. They don't need to do anything. So that is the reason some styles related things are still continuing. So this is CSS classes. Means how do we define them? So syntactically we write like this. That means you write, so input, for input, what is it? Ng invalid. You can write effect for invalid, you can write for pristine, you can say valid. All these are same. Suppose if it is valid, I want green color. If it is invalid, I want as red color. That is fine. What you can do, so here you can add another option. Input what? ng valid. Ng valid. Then same I will copy. Just I will change this to from red to which color? Green. We will change this to red to green color. Now you can see this is working fine. Now you can see these are green color, this is red color, because for even I haven't given required or anything, right? And here it is valid. This is also valid. This is also valid. So all will be green color here. It will display those, right? Technically we can apply different colors. Even you can apply for form. Even you can apply for form. For example, that means now what you can do is you can write for form. What is it? Ng is what? Invalid. then I am giving background color as some light pink, something like this. And background color will be light pink if it is invalid. For form, what we are doing, we will do one more. For form, I will give padding as 20 pixel. That will keep a good gap between that. That will be fine. Now you can see here the form, if it is valid, then we can put background color. So what is it? Form. If it is ng what valid, then background color I will put as, suppose, so light green. I will give like this. That means if all the fields are valid, here I am entering some details, I am entering some options. So, and you can see it is fine. It will change. You can apply at form level and you can apply here. Last session I showed you we used ng class. We don't need to apply any class binding. We don't need to do any class binding. Last session we saw that I applied ng class for the form. If valid, I return a valid style. If invalid, I return a invalid style. You don't need to do that now, because Angular can identify the form state and automatically it can apply the effects. Not only form state, input state also it can manage. Form state and input state, right? This is the template form related example. This is the example for template form validation. Okay, validation. This is the validation. So in this we have template form dot component dot ts. In the ts we have done some logic. This one, let me copy, and we have template form dot component dot css. We done some css work also here. This is the css work. And we have template form dot component dot html. This is all the html work. So this is a example for handling the forms. This is all template form related example. I missed that service related. I uploaded today. So HTTP service related notes, I uploaded that today, right? Already uploaded into the class. Check once. This is template driven form. Now what is the problem with template driven form? The problem with template driven form is heavy on UI, because everything is configured in the UI. Separation issues will be there. That means you can see, so complete user interface is messed up. That means, so required, min length, username, ng model, reference name. This is too complicated. So we can make this simple now. And this is not good for extensibility. It is not good for unit testing, because everything is present at one pace. Rendering will be slow. Then what we can do is we can use reactive forms. That means we can go with another important concept, that is model driven. Model driven, or we call as reactive form. What is model driven and reactive form? So you can configure entire form in controller level. You can configure entire form in controller level. Only the UI you can design in the user interface. That means without using ng model, without using ng form, you can design a form. You can set the validations. Without writing validations inside form, you can validate the form. That is good. That means you don't need to write required min length inside form. Form will be very simple. It contains just a text box, and you can handle all the validations for it. It makes your UI fast, UI rendered fast, lightweight, easy for testing. And not only that, this is very challenging one. In many interviews, they may ask you a question like this, actually, which we can solve here. Generally, they may ask, like, suppose there is a body section in HTML. Here we have a form. and we have another here form. We have another form. Is it valid that a body can contain two forms? Can a HTML body can contain two forms? Is it valid to have multiple forms in a page? It is valid. You can have any number of forms in a page. You can have any number of forms in a page. Now, sometimes we need to create nested form. In a form, another form. Is it valid? Is it valid to have a form inside another form? Why? Because we don't want to submit entire form. We want to submit only specific portion. For example, you opened account details. In account details, categories are there. Personal details, security details, like that. Now you edited only security details. Only that should be submitted. Is it possible to create a form inside another form? Not possible. HTML will not allow. It is invalid in HTML. There is no chance. Then how you will create a portion of the form so that you can submit only specific? For that, actually, we don't use a form. We use some other container, and we make this container by using Ajax. Through Ajax, we can post this container. We can make this as a dynamic form. That is what the concept is. Earlier, we have to use a lot of jQuery and Ajax. These are called asynchronous. Such asynchronous forms you can easily create now by using reactive forms. By using reactive forms, we can design this. It's very easy. That we will see in next session. Tomorrow we'll do that. Right? In tomorrow's session, we will discuss what are reactive forms, how they are designed, how they are different from template forms, and we will also see how the validation happens in reactive forms. Right? Dynamically, how a form can change. That also we will see. Then we are good with forms. Now we can see how to handle interaction with the backends. We will see that. That we will see in the next session. Tomorrow we'll continue. Okay? Right.